Monsieur le secrétaire général des Nations Unies, Monsieur le président du Conseil d'État, Monsieur le directeur général de l'Office des Nations Unies à Genève, Mesdames les anciennes présidentes de la Confédération, Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs les députés du Grand Conseil, Monsieur l'ancien conseiller d'État, Mesdames et Messieurs les responsables de la communauté internationale, chers collègues, chères étudiantes, chers étudiants, Mesdames et Messieurs, Monsieur le secrétaire général, vous avez choisi de vous exprimer aujourd'hui dans une université, dans notre université. Vous nous honorez et nous vous en sommes infiniment reconnaissants. Vous avez ainsi choisi un lieu de recherche, un lieu de formation et peut-être avant tout un lieu de dialogue et d'ouverture, tout un symbole. Dans nos sociétés, où les cultures sont en contact permanent, quotidien, par la mondialisation, l'émigration et les échanges instantanés d'informations, le dialogue entre ces cultures est plus que jamais nécessaire. Il est en fait un vecteur de l'innovation sociétale. Il permet de tendre à une compréhension réciproque entre différentes manières propres de penser, de sentir et de croire, de légiférer, de rêver et d'agir, pour reprendre les mots mêmes de Denis de Rougemont, parlant des cultures au sens large du terme. Apprendre à se connaître et à se comprendre, Mesdames et Messieurs, pour limiter les ignorances, pour effacer les peurs, pour réduire les hostilités et les frustrations à l'échelle du monde, voilà les buts d'un vrai dialogue des cultures que nous appelons de nos vœux. Il est en fait un prérequis à toute politique éclairée de paix et de sécurité. Les universités, notre université, votre université, œuvrent à l'élaboration et à la transmission des savoirs qui facilitent la compréhension de l'altérité par l'analyse et l'interprétation des conduites humaines au cours de l'histoire et aujourd'hui. Nos universités sont actrices de ce nécessaire dialogue des cultures. Elles offrent aux générations futures les outils qui le rendent possible et qui le rendent fécond. Monsieur le secrétaire général, vous allez nous présenter votre agenda pour le désarmement, qui vient répondre à la détérioration de la sécurité internationale. Vous échangerez ensuite à ce sujet avec nos étudiantes et nos étudiants. Votre initiative, Monsieur le secrétaire général, est fondamentale. Elle est de la plus haute importance pour la marche de notre monde, et c'est avec une attention toute particulière que nous vous écouterons, que nos étudiantes et nos étudiants, qui seront les architectes du monde de demain, vont vous écouter, Monsieur le secrétaire général. J'ai le plaisir maintenant de céder la parole au président du Conseil d'État, Monsieur François Longchamp, que j'invite à me rejoindre à ce pupitre. Merci beaucoup de votre attention.
Monsieur le secrétaire général de l'Organisation des Nations Unies, Madame l'ancienne présidente de la Confédération suisse, Monsieur le recteur de l'Université de Genève, Monsieur le directeur général de l'Office des Nations Unies, Mesdames et Messieurs les professeurs, Mesdames, Messieurs et surtout, chers étudiants. Dans ses premières lignes, la Charte de l'ONU dit que les peuples des Nations Unies sont résolus à proclamer leur foi dans les droits fondamentaux de l'homme. Je sais, Madame Calmiret, que vous préfériez dire les droits humains, mais en ce temps-là, on désignait noblement par l'homme l'espèce humaine. Parlons donc de l'humanité. La Charte des Nations Unies énonce pour elle une vision. Elle ne parle pas uniquement de guerre et de paix. Elle souligne que pour parvenir à la stabilité, il faut établir le progrès social. On peut emprunter pour cela 1000 chemins, mais il n'y a qu'un seul terreau, le dialogue des cultures. L'Université de Genève y est attachée. Le recteur vient de le rappeler. L'alma mater agit ainsi comme une loupe sur Genève qui compte sur son territoire 40% d'étrangers, qui accueille davantage d'ambassades que Berne, notre ville fédérale, qui héberge l'essentiel des agences de l'ONU et qui reçoit davantage de conférences que New York. Mesdames et messieurs, il est heureux que le secrétaire général de l'Organisation des Nations Unies ait choisi de faire une annonce ici même. L'alma mater, en effet, c'est la terre nourricière, titre dont on parle les universités depuis que celle de Bologne s'est ainsi qualifiée au XIe siècle. C'est précisément la mission et la préoccupation de l'Organisation des Nations Unies. Elle est mère nourricière, elle aussi, de la paix, de la sécurité et d'une certaine vision de l'organisation humaine. Monsieur le secrétaire général de l'ONU, vous connaissez la cité. Vous y avez opéré au titre de haut-commissaire des Nations Unies aux réfugiés. Vous y comptez nombre d'amis. Genève et l'ONU vivent en symbiose. Durant les 5 ans écoulés, il s'est ouvert davantage de chantiers au sein de la Genève internationale et il s'en ouvrira encore durant les 5 années à venir que durant les 50 dernières années écoulées. L'ONU doit aux efforts de votre directeur général à Genève, M. Michael Moller, un regain de compréhension par la population locale de l'importance de l'ONU, et aussi sans doute d'un regain de compréhension par l'Assemblée générale de l'ONU du rôle de la Suisse et de Genève. Dans notre pays, les autorités et nos concitoyens vouent à l'Organisation des Nations Unies un respect et une attention forgés par une collaboration empathique, réactive et convaincue. Monsieur le secrétaire général, vous êtes un homme d'action. Vous avez connu les plus hautes responsabilités nationales au Portugal avant d'entrer aux Nations Unies. Vous savez qu'il faut un cadre pour réaliser l'impossible. Ce cadre est ici. Vous êtes chez vous, à Genève, parce que Genève aime à vous recevoir et parce que le monde est à Genève. Nous nous réjouissons toutes et tous de vous entendre.
Monsieur le Président du Conseil d'État, merci infiniment de vos paroles, merci de votre soutien à la Genève internationale et à notre université en particulier. Sans plus tarder, je passe maintenant la parole au secrétaire général, Monsieur António Guterres. On va boire vos paroles, Monsieur le secrétaire général. Merci infiniment de votre présence.
Chers étudiants, Monsieur le recteur et chers membres de l'Académie, Monsieur le Président du Conseil d'État, Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, je vous remercie infiniment de votre accueil chaleureux et des mots tellement sympathiques que je viens d'entendre. C'est pour moi un énorme plaisir d'être de retour ici à Genève. And indeed, it is a pleasure to be here with you today to focus on a subject of great global anxiety, the threat posed by weapons of all kinds. I wanted to launch my disarmament agenda here in Geneva, the city of peace, diplomacy, and humanitarian action, home to a community of peacemaking institutions where many conflicts have been prevented and resolved. I thank the University of Geneva for generously hosting us. In the past few weeks and months, arms control has been in the news every day, sometimes in relation to Iran and Syria, sometimes the Korean Peninsula. Let me say a few brief words on these recent developments. I am deeply concerned by the cancellation of the planned meeting in Singapore between the President of the United States and the leader of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. And I urge the parties to continue their dialogue, to find a path to the peaceful and verifiable denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. And I welcome all actions by the European Union and others to work with Iran to preserve the joint comprehensive plan of action. But the disarmament agenda I'm launching today goes beyond nuclear weapons and weapons of mass destruction. Disarmament concerns every country and all weapons, from hand grenades to hydrogen bombs. Deadly weapons put us all at risk, and leaders have a responsibility to minimize that risk. The paradox is that when each country pursues its own security without regard for others, we create global insecurity that threatens us all. Disarmament, including arms control, non-proliferation, prohibitions, restrictions, confidence building, and, where needed, elimination, is an essential tool to secure our world and our future. Mesdames et Messieurs, chers étudiants, nous vivons une époque dangereuse. Les tensions de la guerre froide font leur réapparition, et ce, dans un monde plus complexe que celui d'hier. La plupart d'entre vous, les étudiants de Genève, n'étaient même pas encore nés au moment de la guerre froide, lorsque le monde entier retenait son souffle en observant deux superpuissances se livrer une lutte d'influence. Fort heureusement, malgré un grand nombre d'accidents, dont certains évités de justesse et de fausses alertes, nous avons pu échapper à un affrontement nucléaire. Nous nous dirigeons à présent vers un monde multipolaire. Les relations internationales sont plus complexes et plus imprévisibles. Les mécanismes d'échange et de dialogue qui contribuaient autrefois à apaiser les tensions et à faire en sorte qu'un incident isolé ne dégénère pas en conflit à grande échelle ont perdu de leur efficacité. Dans le même temps, la nature même de la guerre a changé. Les conflits sont aujourd'hui plus fréquents, plus longs et plus dévastateurs pour les populations civiles. Les guerres civiles sont liées aux rivalités régionales et mondiales. Il arrive que l'on trouve parmi les belligérants des extrémistes violents, des terroristes, des milices organisées et des criminels de droit commun. Et ces groupes disposent d'un vaste arsenal qui comprend aussi bien des armes de poing que de drones ou des missiles balistiques et qu'ils cherchent sans cesse à renforcer. Les dépenses militaires s'accroissent et la course aux armements s'accélère au niveau mondial, notamment dans les régions les plus dangereuses. L'année dernière, les achats d'armes et les dépenses militaires se sont élevés à plus de 1 700 milliards de dollars, une somme record depuis la chute du mur de Berlin, qui représente environ 80 fois le montant nécessaire à l'aide humanitaire mondiale. Et les armes chimiques ont fait leur réapparition. La communauté internationale est divisée et ne parvient pas à prendre des mesures pour les combattre efficacement. Des explosifs puissants et dévastateurs conçus pour le champ de bataille sont aujourd'hui utilisés dans les zones habitées. Et de nouvelles armes utilisant l'intelligence artificielle et les systèmes autonomes voient le jour en violation des lois et des conventions existantes. Pendant ce temps, l'action pour mettre fin à la pauvreté, promouvoir la santé et l'éducation, lutter contre les changements climatiques et protéger notre planète se voit privée des ressources nécessaires. Telle est la toile de fond de mon programme d'action pour le désarmement. Dear students, ladies and gentlemen, my agenda has 3 priorities: disarmament to save humanity, disarmament to save lives, and disarmament for future generations. First, disarmament to save humanity, aiming to reduce and eliminate weapons of mass destruction, nuclear, chemical, and biological. The total elimination of nuclear weapons is in the DNA of the United Nations. Indeed, it was the subject of the very first resolution adopted by the General Assembly in 1946. And today, the total elimination of nuclear weapons remains our priority, to which I reaffirm my commitment. But efforts to achieve this goal are in state of severe crisis. Our world is going backwards. Throughout and immediately after the Cold War, it was possible, through difficult negotiations, to yield agreements that reduced arsenals, outlawed nuclear testing, and dismantled whole categories of missiles. Communication channels enhanced at the time transparency, built confidence, and reduced risks. 3 ex-Soviet states, Belarus, Kazakhstan, and Ukraine, repatriated nuclear weapons in their possession. South Africa unilaterally dismantled its nuclear arsenal, and other states took important positive steps. World leaders at the time were fluent in the language and logic of arms control, and they understood that it was integral to security. But the agreements of that era are now threatened as never before. Strategic dialogue between the nuclear weapon states remains today limited. There are no bilateral negotiations underway between Russia and the United States for further nuclear arms reductions. Governments are pouring resources into updating old weapon systems, developing new ones, and entering into what many see as a new arms race based on quality rather than quantity. Some 15,000 nuclear weapons remain stockpiled around the world. Hundreds are ready to be launched within minutes. We are one mechanical, electronic, or human error away from a catastrophe that could eradicate entire cities from the map. We all agree that the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty is central to the maintenance of international peace and security. This landmark treaty, which is nearly 50 years old, has successfully limited the number of states that possess nuclear weapons to less than 10. Its safeguards regime provides assurance of the exclusively peace nature of civil nuclear programs. But beyond that, the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty is also essential to preserving an environment conducive to disarmament. Non-proliferation and disarmament are two sides of the same coin. Together, they constitute a reciprocal legal arrangement between the nuclear and the non-nuclear states. Reversal on one side will lead to reversal on the other, and we have reasons to fear the risks in relation to the Non-Proliferation Treaty today. I appeal to all states, including non-parties, to adhere to the non-proliferation and disarmament obligations and commitments under the NPT. All states, nuclear and non-nuclear, must work together to bridge the gulf that divides them. Some characterize the difference as a choice between humanitarian and security concerns, but that is a false dichotomy. Human security, national security, and global security are indivisible. When people fear for their lives, their communities, societies, and countries are at increased risk. When people enjoy safety, so do their countries and the world. The Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, adopted last year and central in the awarding of the 2017 Nobel Peace Prize, demonstrated strong international support for a permanent end to the threat posed by nuclear arms. And it was also a call to break the stalemate in nuclear disarmament negotiations. Dear students, ladies and gentlemen, the states that possess nuclear weapons have primary responsibility. They must prevent the use of nuclear weapons, reduce the danger of nuclear war, and lead efforts on non-proliferation and disarmament. And this must start with meeting their existing obligations with concrete benchmarks and timelines, and some of these are decades overdue. I appeal to the Russian Federation and the United States to resolve their dispute over the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty, to extend the New START Treaty on Strategic Offensive Arms, which is due to expire in just 3 years, and to take new steps towards reducing nuclear stockpiles. Together with other states that possess nuclear weapons, they should urgently renew efforts towards reducing the dangers posed by these weapons by taking concrete action in a number of key areas. And here I will quote from the text of my disarmament agenda published today. These areas include reductions in overall stockpiles of all types of nuclear weapons, ensuring the non-use of nuclear weapons, reduction of the role and significance of nuclear weapons in military concepts, doctrines and policies, reductions in the operational readiness of nuclear weapon systems, constraints on the development and advanced new types of nuclear weapons, increased transparency in nuclear weapons programs, and measures to build confidence and mutual trust. End of quote. I will do everything I can to support these efforts. Through their policies and actions, every government should work to ensure that the 72-year practice of non-use of nuclear weapons continues indefinitely and is universally understood to be an inviolable no. The same should be true of the norm against nuclear testing. By constraining the development of new types of weapons, the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty put a brake on the arms race. With the exception of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, all governments have upheld the moratorium on nuclear tests for the past 2 decades. Since 1996, when the treaty opened for signature, the international community has responded to all violations of this norm, and the Security Council adopted a resolution to support the treaty in 2016. I appealed for states that have not yet done so to join the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty without delay. We need to preserve the valuable gains we have made, even as we forge new understandings and new agreements. Dialogue and negotiations are the only way forward and must guide our efforts. And I will work directly with Member States to facilitate dialogue among governments, including through the creation of informal platforms to explore new approaches and measures to reduce risks and to build confidence. We will redouble our work with experts at the technical level to develop practical measures to pave the world for a world free of nuclear weapons. And this should include further partial measures for disarmament, from strengthening and consolidating nuclear weapon-free zones, to ending the production of nuclear material for weapons, limiting strategic nuclear delivery systems, and agreeing on approaches to verify disarmament. Let us all work together to bring new urgency to achieve the universal goal of a nuclear weapon-free world. Dear students, ladies and gentlemen, we will also take steps to end and prevent the use of other weapons of mass destruction, especially chemical weapons. Since 2014, the fact-finding mission of the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons has examined 83 incidents involving the alleged use of chemical weapons in Syria. Investigators have said chemical weapons were used or were more than likely to have been used in 14 cases so far. Each use is a crime under international law, and their widespread use may also constitute a crime against humanity. The Security Council has failed to meet its responsibility to ensure accountability for these attacks. And I'm working with the members of the Security Council to build new leadership and unity to restore shared ownership and respect for the global ban on chemical weapons. These must include the creation of a new and impartial mechanism to identify those who use them. We cannot allow continued impunity in Syria or elsewhere. And I will also support to strengthen the Chemical Weapons Convention and its institutional capacity to ensure the full implementation of the landmark disarmament treaty. We will never accept the possession or use of chemical weapons. We must also do more to increase our ability to uphold the ban on biological weapons. Concerns around these weapons continue to grow as developments in science and technology make them easier to develop and use. But there is currently no organization or inspectorate body supporting the Biological Weapons Convention. I will therefore work with Member States to establish a core standing mechanism to conduct investigations into any alleged use of these weapons based on the authority given to me. And I will also explore long-term solutions, including strengthening the institutional capacity of the Biological Weapons Convention. Strengthening the norms and conventions against chemical and biological weapons is in the interests of all humanity. These weapons are banned and they should never be used. Dear students, ladies and gentlemen, my second priority is disarmament that saves lives by reducing and mitigating the impact of conventional weapons. The widespread availability of these weapons, from improvised explosive devices to ballistic missiles, rockets, artillery, and illicit handguns, contributes to the armed violence that is causing chaos in many parts of the world. Military industries are producing ever more weapons. The arms trade is seeking ever-expanding markets. Countries are building up massive stockpiles of conventional arms, especially in the most conflict-prone regions of the world. And we must counter these destabilizing trends. We have already seen how the prohibition and restriction of some conventional weapons can save and improve lives. Anti-personnel landmines and cluster munitions have been banned for years. And the Arms Trade Treaty that regulates the sale of weapons on humanitarian grounds came into force in 2014. But despite these achievements, civilians continue to bear the brunt of armed conflict. Beyond the appalling numbers of civilians killed and injured, conflicts are driving record numbers of people from their homes, often depriving them of food, healthcare, education, and any means of making a living. At the end of 2016, more than 65 million people were uprooted by war, violence, and persecution. As armed conflict has moved from open fields into cities, explosive weapons are particularly deadly for civilians. When explosive weapons are used in urban areas, some 90% of the casualties are civilians. And these weapons also have a devastating effect on hospitals, schools, and water and electricity supplies. That is why I will support Member States in developing appropriate limitations, common standards, and operational policies on the use of these weapons in residential areas. And I will also support the collection of data on civilian casualties. We need more evidence to effect changes to policies, military operational procedures, and behavior, and to create stronger global standards to protect civilians. Dear students, ladies and gentlemen, the United Nations has sought to tackle the widespread availability of illicit small arms and ammunition from many angles: peace and security, gender equality, sustainable development, transnational crime, counterterrorism, and humanitarian action. United Nations peacekeepers often work on disarmament programs around the world, and they are an integral part of our work on sustaining peace. But our work has been spread across 20 different agencies. It is fragmented and limited. I am therefore launching a new initiative to combat the illicit circulation and trade in small arms at the national level and across borders. I will dedicate resources within the Peacebuilding Fund to support government action on illicit small arms and light weapons, including collection and destruction, and the development of legal and policy frameworks. United Nations peacekeepers work on disarmament programs around the world. My initiative will have a strong basis also in the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, the world's blueprint for peace and prosperity on a healthy planet. Excessive spending on weapons drains resources from sustainable development. It is incompatible with creating stable, inclusive societies, strong institutions, effective governance and democracy, and the culture of respect for human rights. And there is also a strong gender dimension to this work. Almost universally, guns are infused with masculine characteristics. Men make up the overwhelming majority of the owners and users of firearms. Women are several times more likely to be victims of gun violence than perpetrators. The presence of excessive and unregulated firearms exacerbates gender-based violence and shores up traditional gender roles and power relations. We must prevent a culture of violence and bloodshed and a cycle that is difficult to break. Dear students, ladies and gentlemen, my third priority is disarmament for future generations. Advances in science and technology are transforming many aspects of our lives for the better. Technological progress has increased trade and prosperity and improved living conditions in many parts of the world. Technologies including big data and analytics, artificial intelligence and automation should help us to combat and mitigate the impact of climate change, to protect our environment, and to create conditions for growth and development that benefit everyone. But many of these developments are also enabling new weapon technologies with dangerous and repugnant applications. They could open a new battlefield or start a new arms race. Some developments could challenge existing legal, humanitarian, and ethical norms. The prospect of autonomous weapons has already generated considerable public anxiety. Human beings must remain in control of the use of force at all times. Some, like armed drones, could challenge long-standing interpretations of international law. We need common standards to promote accountability, transparency, and oversight. Some, like advances in gene editing and synthetic biology, could enable new types of biological warfare, making these prohibited weapons easier to use. There is another reason to increase the capacity of the Biological Weapons Convention and its instruments. The continued development of hypersonic, ballistic missiles, and space-based weapons could create new threats to security and add new complications to nuclear disarmament. Meanwhile, the malicious use of cyberspace is growing, and its impacts are becoming more widespread. If there is a major outbreak of armed conflict in our world, and we all hope there is not, I am sure that it would be preceded by a massive cyber attack. And there is consensus that international law, including the United Nations Charter, applies to cyberspace. However, there is a lack of consensus about precisely how international law applies and how states may respond to malicious or hostile acts within the law. Cyber attacks or critical infrastructure could have serious consequences for international relations, peace and security. We could even face the creation of cyber weapons of mass destruction. The combined risks of new weapons technologies could have a game-changing impact on our future security. Our joint disarmament efforts in this area must have a game-changing preventive impact. And there are many things we can do together. Governments can improve oversight, transparency and accountability. All states have a responsibility to determine whether new weapons they seek would be prohibited under international law. And I'm prepared to make available my good offices to prevent conflict resulting from acts committed in cyberspace. And I will support member states to elaborate new measures, including legally binding agreements to make sure human beings control the use of force at all times. I will bring together scientists and engineers who commit to developing science and technology for peaceful purposes. We urgently need their insights. And I will explore opportunities for encouraging responsible innovation by the private sector. I urge governments to continue to explore multilateral measures for prevention and control. Dear students, ladies and gentlemen, we cannot create a safer world for all through uncoordinated action. Disarmament works best when we work together, governments, experts, civil society and individuals. As our expectations for disarmament evolve, so must these partnerships. Let us look at our principal multilateral fora, the Conference on Disarmament and the Disarmament Commission. Both will soon be 40 years old, and both have produced very little for the last half of their lifetimes. It is past time to revigorate them. They will require improved coordination, an end to duplication, better use of expertise, and above all, political courage to shift positions. I intend to work with member states and to investigate possible ways to achieve this. One way forward is to open them up to new voices and make them as inclusive and diverse as possible. Women have a leading role to play in all our work for global peace and security. Several women have been awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for their role in achieving landmark disarmament treaties and in mobilizing global public opinion. Women must participate as decision makers in all disarmament processes, and I am totally committed to doing all I can to support this. And young people, like the students present in this room, are the most important force for change in our world. I hope you'll use your voices to make a difference, from giving your time and energy to causes that matter to you, to advocating and standing up for what you know is right. You have opportunities to act locally, to volunteer and to work through civil society organizations. And social media offers unprecedented tools to connect, to reach across borders, and join with others around the world through campaigns, non-governmental organizations, and online communities. The United Nations would like to work with you to help you acquire the knowledge and skills to amplify your voices and lead the change we need. I hope you will use your power and your connections to advocate for a peaceful world free from nuclear weapons, in which weapons are controlled and regulated and resources are directed towards opportunity and prosperity for all. The United Nations was created with the goal of eliminating war as an instrument of foreign policy. But 7 decades on, our world is as dangerous as it has ever been. Disarmament prevents and ends violence. Disarmament supports sustainable development. And disarmament is true to our values and principles. That is why I am presenting this agenda for disarmament here today. I urge all to step up, and I thank you for your attention and look forward for our discussion. Thank you very much.
Monsieur le secrétaire général, merci infiniment de ces paroles fortes qui feront date dans la politique internationale de sécurité. J'invite maintenant la professeure Micheline Calmiret, ancienne présidente de la Confédération, à nous rejoindre sur l'estrade, à s'asseoir à côté de monsieur le secrétaire général António Guterres. J'invite également madame Ronak Hassani, madame Béatrice Muller, et M. Miguel Vidal-Bover, étudiantes et étudiants de l'Université de Genève, à rejoindre M. Guterres pour une séance de questions-réponses. Merci infiniment de votre présence.
Monsieur le Secrétaire Général, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's great to be here. It's a great privilege to be here and to be able to congratulate you. Because regarding the recent events, the withdrawal of the United States from the Iranian nuclear deals, and what happens in Syria, what happens in Yemen, what happens in Gaza, I think you are very courageous men. If you are looking, we are living in a world where weapons are everywhere. We are living in a world where conflicts are booming, where people are killed, millions and millions of people are injured and killed. And in this world, you are coming and making an initiative on disarmament. Thank you very much. I think we have to thank you and congratulate you. And you come... Yeah, bravo. And you are here in Geneva. In Geneva, there is an institution who got a mandate to negotiate on disarmament question. And this is the Commission on Disarmament. And this commission have done a work, have done in 1992, the Chemical Weapons Convention, 1996, the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, but this commission was blocked during 20 years. Now, since last year, it moved a little bit. That's, I have to say, is either a good news. Ladies and gentlemen, Monsieur le Secrétaire général, peut-être certains parmi vous se demandent ce que nous faisons ici, moi-même et mes étudiants, assis aux côtés, qui avons l'honneur d'être assis aux côtés du Secrétaire général des Nations Unies. Je conduis un séminaire qui porte sur l'art et la science de la négociation et qui travaille beaucoup sur les questions de désarmement et de non-prolifération. En 2015, nous avons eu le plaisir de simuler une négociation sur Fissile Material Cut-off Treaty, FMCT. We deblocked the Commission on Disarmament Commission, and we negotiate some elements of this treaty. I hand over you the debriefing of our simulation. And this year, we, that means my students from the University of Geneva, 3 of them are sitting here, and the students of the ETH Zurich and of the Moscow Institute for International Relations, we are preparing a simulation on the Korean Peninsula. So I think it's, for the students and for me, it is something very, not only interesting, but I mean, it put us in a situation where we can see how the world is going on. It's not very funny, I have to say. But my students are now very eager to put you some questions. They prepared some questions. So I give the floor to, first of all, to Michael.
Thank you very much, Secretary General, for being here and for answering questions from students like us. As you mentioned in your speech, the Conference on Disarmament has remained paralyzed due to the rule of consensus for over 20 years. Does the UN have any plan to start a process that would look into ways to reform this Conference on Disarmament?
I think the central problem is not the problem of reform, even if I believe that, as I said, to open the dialogue, to be more inclusive, to have other entities having an influence on the dialogue is essential. But I think the central question is political will. And what we have had in the last 20 years, as it was said, was lack of political will, and largely due to lack of confidence and trust. We live in a world where the confidence and trust between the general public and the institutions, national institutions and international institutions, and between countries is as low as ever that I remember from the past. And what I think the United Nations needs to do is to create the conditions to increase trust and to make people understand, especially to make governments understand, that this paralysis is undermining their own security. And it's in the interest of everybody to move forward. Now, there was, as Madame Calmire explained, some movement. Some working groups were created, and for the first time in 20 years, some substance is being discussed. But we are far from a true negotiation platform. And I think what we need is to move towards a true negotiation platform, and there are many areas that can be covered by that, and we'll be putting as much pressure as possible in member states to move in that direction. And I appeal for everybody at the level of the civil society, at the level of public opinion, to do everything possible to make governments understand that this paralysis, if you look at the risks that are now appearing, the risks of non-proliferation in relation to nuclear weapons, JCPOA, today's news about North Korea, the dramatic risks of non-proliferation of chemical weapons. Chemical weapons now are being used, and it becomes almost a new normal. So it's in the interest of everybody to stop this trend, because it's our collective security that is being put at risk.
Beatrice?
Thank you. My question is the following. Explosive weapons in populated areas are a major cause of civilian casualties in today's conflict. It is unlikely that this armament can be extended to all weapons belonging to the category of explosive weapons, which in turn are likely to be used in densely populated areas. What can be done to face this humanitarian challenge?
Well, first of all, explosive weapons were designed for the battlefield, not for urban warfare. And obviously, there are no disarmament agreements in relation to those weapons that are being used. But it is clear under international humanitarian law that they cannot be used systematically against civilians. So the use of this kind of weapons systematically against civilians, and as I said, 90% of the casualties in urban warfare are today civilians. The use of this kind of weapons against civilians is clearly a violation of international humanitarian law. And I think it's necessary for member states to make an effort to create a number of norms and a number of principles in relation to the use of these weapons. There is some progress. There are two examples that I think are quite interesting. One is the African Union in Somalia. They adopted a code of conduct on these issues that is quite an advancement coming from Somalia. Can you imagine? And an example given by the African Union. The other is in Afghanistan, of the international forces, that have indeed taken a number of measures to make sure that these weapons are not used in the circumstances that I was mentioning. So we have not a prohibition of these weapons, we have not a disarmament mechanism, but we have international humanitarian law. And we need to be effective in making sure that violations of international humanitarian law are taken seriously by the international community. And there are crimes that are committed. Those crimes should be obviously prosecuted. There is a particular responsibility of the Security Council. It's true that we know that the Security Council has been very reluctant in recent times, for instance, in referring cases to the International Criminal Court. So there are many problems that we are facing, many difficulties for this lack of trust, for this lack of confidence. But this is for us, when disarmament is not only about nuclear weapons, and disarmament that saves lives is crucial, and the central part of the disarmament that saves lives for me is exactly the use of explosive weapons in urban warfare contexts.
You kind of already answered to this question through your discourse and your explanation of the second priority. But my question is about the Syrian civil war, which is a very sad practical example of the weakness of some of our legal instruments in the field of disarmament. And since 2011, state parties to the Chemical Weapons Convention have been accused of having used chemical weapons in Syria, and that more than once. And as you mentioned, the UN Security Council has a big responsibility in this convention. And my question is, do you see anything that the UN can do specifically in the case of Syria to ensure that the violations are properly investigated and that the ban on the use of chemical weapons is really enforced?
Well, first of all, I think it's very important to underline what you said. Explosive weapons used in urban warfare, those weapons are allowed. They are being used in a context where they should not be used. But chemical weapons are banned in all circumstances. The possession and use of chemical weapons is banned. And so, obviously, its use is a war crime, and its massive use can be a crime against humanity. We had a serious problem in relation to Syria, because there are two mechanisms that were in place. One is a fact-finding mission of the Organization of Prohibition of Chemical Weapons. That fact-finding mission has identified a number of situations in which chemical weapons have been used, but the mandate that was given to that fact-finding mission did not allow it to attribute responsibilities. And so another mechanism was created by the Security Council, called the JIM, Joint Inspection Mechanism, that was able to attribute responsibilities in relation to a limited number of situations. In some cases, responsibilities of the government of Syria, in some cases, responsibilities of terrorist organizations. The point is that that has created a huge division in the Security Council. So the mandate of this joint inspection mechanism has not been renewed. And until now, all attempts to create a mechanism to replace it have failed, with vetoes that have not allowed it to move forward. I have not lost hope that it will be possible to find a compromise and to make sure that we have a mechanism to attribute responsibilities in relation of chemical weapons, because we need to end impunity. The problem is, if there's no attribution of responsibility, there is total impunity. And in something that is banned, independently of the horrible impact that it has on people, and we have all seen the terrible images, but it's banned. And so it is a dramatic failure of the international community not to be able to implement something that is clearly, the end of something that is clearly banned. Now, there are other mechanisms that are possible, I know member states have been considering those other possible mechanisms in the context of the organization of prohibition of chemical weapons, in the context of other bodies of the UN. But I still believe that the best solution would be to create the conditions for the Security Council to fully assume their responsibilities in relation to this. I would say that one of the dramatic problems we have in today's world is the failure to have consensus in the Security Council in relation to things that should be uniting everybody.
You have a second question?
Yeah, maybe I can. My second question is in French, if it's okay for you. In French.
Ah, mais c'est parfait.
Yeah. Donc, actuellement, la grande majorité des conflits armés sont de nature prolongée. Nous avons de nombreuses de nature prolongée, tout comme on le voit avec la RDC, le Yémen, la Syrie, l'Irak ou encore l'Afghanistan. Aussi, la disponibilité des armes légères et des armes de petit calibre constitue une variable non négligeable dans la prolongation et la duration de ces conflits armés. Plus de 14 milliards de munitions sont produites, fabriquées chaque année, soit une capacité meurtrière de presque 2 fois la population mondiale actuelle. De plus, 85% du trafic illicite d'armes proviennent de contrats légaux, signés en bonne et due forme. Donc ma question est la suivante. Comment envisagez-vous d'aborder cette problématique et comment les Nations Unies peuvent réellement répondre à un défi d'une telle envergure?
Je crois que ce n'est pas seulement les Nations Unies, c'est-à-dire ça dépend beaucoup des États membres et d'un certain nombre d'instruments qui existent, mais qui, quelquefois, ce n'est pas facile de mettre en place, effectivement. En tout cas, si vous me permettez une considération préalable, la prévention des conflits en général est un élément essentiel. Et la capacité de résoudre les conflits est un autre élément essentiel. Et ces deux éléments ont largement manqué dans le passé récent en termes d'efficacité. Et c'est pour ça que la priorité absolue de mon activité aujourd'hui et de notre programme dans les Nations Unies, c'est la prévention. Et faire tout pour éviter que les nouveaux conflits puissent se développer. Et en même temps, on fait de notre mieux. Il y a maintenant des initiatives importantes pour essayer d'arrêter le conflit en Libye, d'arrêter le conflit en Yémen. Syrie, c'est bien plus compliqué, dans quelques endroits africains. Alors, prévention et résolution des conflits, c'est la base essentielle, parce que c'est l'absence de prévention et l'absence de résolution de conflits qui, après, facilite cette utilisation massive des armes légères et d'autres dont vous parlez. Deuxièmement, il y a des mécanismes qu'on peut utiliser, notamment des embargos, notamment des sanctions. Et on a aussi vérifié dans le passé récent une certaine difficulté du Conseil de sécurité d'assumer ces mesures. Et quelquefois, on a surtout des mesures de nature unilatérale ou autre. Ce serait bon d'avoir une plus grande fermeté du Conseil de sécurité dans cette matière. Après, il y a un traité sur le commerce des armes. Et il faut que ce traité soit effectivement appliqué. Alors, il y a beaucoup de choses qu'on peut faire dans différents domaines. Et je vois notre rôle dans le Secrétaire des Nations Unies un peu en essayant de pousser tous les acteurs pour agir dans tous ces domaines, pour essayer de réduire ce qui est cette tragédie de l'utilisation massive de ces armes avec des effets absolument terribles. Et après, il y a une autre question qui est une question politique. Dès que les budgets d'armement dans le monde soient tellement élevés Et dès que les investissements dans ce domaine soient tellement élevés, naturellement, il y a une tendance inévitable pour que de plus en plus les armes soient utilisées dans des circonstances qui, comme vous avez dit, sont illicites, mais profitant de contrats qui sont légaux.
Voilà, une deuxième question en français. Dans votre discours maintenant, vous avez mentionné l'objectif d'éliminer les armes nucléaires. Considérez-vous le traité d'interdiction d'armes nucléaires comme un mécanisme efficace de dénucléarisation ou de désarmement nucléaire? Et pensez-vous qu'il soit compatible avec le TNP? Et aussi, quel rôle pourrait jouer l'ONU au cadre de ce relativement nouveau traité?
Premièrement, il faut dire qu'il est totalement compatible avec le traité de non-prolifération. D'ailleurs, il faut dire, c'est très clair, la non-prolifération et le désarmement vont ensemble. Et cette paralysie des mécanismes de désarmement est un, je dirais, est un facteur d'instigation qui met en risque la non-prolifération. Alors, il faut vraiment que les deux mécanismes vont ensemble. Je crois qu'il y a une complémentarité, aucune opposition. Deuxièmement, ce traité est d'une importance énorme. On peut dire, mais vous êtes naïf parce qu'on ne va pas complètement abolir les armes nucléaires demain. Alors, ce traité peut sembler difficilement applicable dans son objectif essentiel. Mais la vérité, c'est que ce traité correspond à l'affirmation d'une énorme frustration et d'une énorme volonté d'un grand nombre de pays, d'ailleurs croissants, pour dire « ça suffit ». Et aussi, le fait que ce traité ait été approuvé est aujourd'hui un facteur qui mène ceux qui ne sont pas d'accord avec le traité à comprendre qu'en tout cas, il faut faire quelque chose. Et je crois que ce traité est aujourd'hui un facteur d'impulsion à d'autres mécanismes de désarmement plus limités, mais en tout cas essentiels. Alors, je crois que les critiques faciles à ce traité sont totalement injustifiées et je crois que c'est un instrument très important qui a un impact direct et surtout indirect qu'on doit relever.
As master's degree students, some of us are following a course on the DPRK and the potential denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. Thus, we know that a solid verification regime is of paramount importance. Since the United States had the UN mandate in the Korean War, it would be logical, it would be natural for the UN to have a role in the verification system. So my question is, how can we get the verification system to be multilateral, and how can we involve the UN in it?
Well, first, the UN has been doing several things. And for instance, as you probably know, before all these events took place, I've sent the Under-Secretary General of Political Affairs to Pyongyang exactly to put pressure to see if we could unblock a situation that was looking like we would be moving into the kind of war that could have devastating consequences. So there are a number of areas in good offices in which the UN can do things. And I went to Pyeongchang myself to talk with both Koreas. So there are things we can do. Now, there is no institutional instrument for managing the disarmament and verifying the disarmament. We have the International Agency of Atomic Energy, but the International Agency of Atomic Energy is essentially to guarantee that the nuclear capacity in the countries is verified and is used for peaceful purposes. It's not a disarmament mechanism. And in relation to the nuclear test ban treaty, as you know, North Korea has not yet signed it. Of course, there's a number of things that can be done, but it's, again, not an instrument of disarmament, which means that the verification of a nuclear disarmament process like this one will depend largely on the will of the parties. Having said so, we are ready to cooperate in all possible forms to support the success of a mechanism that I hope, or a process that I hope, that the recent news do not mean that we will not move forward. And if I have a message to hold parties on this is nerves of steel, and let's continue with the efforts to find a path for the peaceful denuclearization and the rarefied denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. But the role that the United Nations or its different agencies can have largely depends on the will of the parties.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary General. I think we are at the end of the questions. Thank you to have taken the time to answer to our question. And as you said, we are living in a dangerous world and something has to be done. So thank you for doing something. And we hope for you great, great success. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Monsieur le secrétaire général, Madame la professeure, chères étudiantes, chers étudiants, je vous remercie vivement pour cet échange très fructueux et riche. Monsieur António Guterres, ce fut un honneur de vous accueillir à l'Université de Genève. Je remercie aussi toutes celles et tous ceux qui se sont déplacés pour être avec nous cet après-midi et ceux qui ont aussi suivi cet événement en direct sur Internet. Je retiendrai en particulier, Monsieur Guterres, votre appel à l'engagement institutionnel, à l'engagement individuel, à l'engagement de la société civile pour faire avancer cette cause si importante pour l'avenir du monde. Je retiendrai aussi le rôle que les experts, que l'expertise scientifique peut aussi apporter comme contribution importante au désarmement et à la sécurité dans le monde. Mesdames et messieurs, pour des raisons d'organisation, je vous remercie de conserver vos places pendant encore quelques minutes et de ne pas quitter la salle tout de suite. Seuls les représentants de la presse, que je remercie aussi de leur présence, sont invités à sortir maintenant. Je vous souhaite à toutes et à tous une très bonne et une très belle soirée et je me réjouis surtout de vous retrouver à la prochaine occasion dans notre université. Merci de votre présence. Très bonne soirée.